It can happen to any one of us at any time. A crack appears in the world around us, small at first, but it's enough for us to get a glimpse, enough for us to see that beyond all this is something else. But what? Against our better judgment, the lure of the unknown draws us to peek through, and once we do, there's no turning back, because that crack inevitably begins to expand until you're no longer looking through it, or even at it. You are in it, and the place you started, the world you knew, it's so small that the idea you'd ever be able to get back to it, well, I don't need to say any more. So what is this place? It depends who you are, but one thing is the same for everyone. Peeking behind the curtain of forbidden knowledge in this way, it shatters your sense of yourself, of reality, and that is a very dark place to be. I invite you to be a tourist and step into the minds of those people lost to the unknown, and the scarce few who found a way out, to hear their terrifying stories. But I must warn you, once you climb inside, I can't promise that you won't end up counting yourself among them. What they have to say will change you, bring near what should be kept far, far away. Because there are things we're not meant to know. We're not meant to know. An anthology of horror, now transmitting from Spectre Vision Radio.
The following podcast has coarse language and subject matter that you might find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. When we die, do we get to choose? Do we get to choose whether or not we move to the next place or stay earthbound in spirit form? Can we be reincarnated or just float and become a distant star? Do we get to choose who we haunt? I think about this often, given the nature of this podcast, and I'm not sure what I would decide, or if I need to prepare an answer for when my time comes. What would you do if you could do it differently? Not all hauntings are scary. They can be beautiful. A rectification of your life through death. Welcome to the world beyond the veil. This is Geist. Growing up sensitive is a challenge. Where do you go for advice or guidance? How do you explain to someone you need protection from something that you can't see, but you know is there? Well, sometimes it takes the spirit world to protect you from the spirit world.
My name is Leah. I live in a small town called Kleinburg. I moved here, I believe it was 95 or 96. I was 8 or 9 years old. It was a very old house. It had been repossessed by the bank, so no one had been in this house for quite some time. When we first moved in, we had squirrels that had broken into the house. It was a mess. In the basement, there was a monkey cage because the previous owner was a vet and he had monkeys. I had a typical household for an Italian household. You know, there were feelings, there were loud discussions. We didn't have fights. We were discussing things, you know. No one really fights when you're Italian. It's just talking. It was very stressful. Our family was sort of going through a big tear from my dad's family, and so feelings were running high, and my dad works in construction, so you live in renovations when you are a construction family. My mom had sort of a Disney approach, even to Halloween. You know, we could dress up as ghosts, or she would make our costumes, and so we could be any. I think I was a Care Bear one year. Didn't really talk about ghosts. My dad did like to hide around the house and scare the shit out of us. My family was very neutral about ghosts. We didn't talk about it. I didn't really think it was a thing aside from Casper. When we moved in, it was chaos. So I was left alone a lot. I had an older brother, but I was often alone. And so moving to the country, it felt very isolating. Like I couldn't just get on my bike and go ride.
Leah started noticing that the house had a vibe.
I remember always feeling like I was being watched. I would get these sort of pauses where you'd be doing something and then all of a sudden you have to stop and listen because you felt like there was somebody there watching you. But you couldn't. There couldn't be anybody watching you because you're in the middle of nowhere alone in a house. My parents both worked full time, so my brother and I were alone a lot. So I knew no one was in the house, and yet you felt like somebody was in the house standing behind you. I definitely think there's a sensitivity there. I always do get this vibe, especially when I stay in older places. There's a feeling of something's here. Because I was an imaginative child and very always in my head, my parents were so dismissive of like, no, I swear to God, I saw this, or no, I feel like there's someone here. I heard something. My dad would be like, okay, relax. Let's not be dramatic. And I think because it was such a stressful time, they thought it was maybe a reaction to the stress. And so I just chalked it up to being an imaginative kid. But we did have a large Old English sheepdog named Sam, and he was very vocal. He was not a vocal dog. He did not bark inadvertently. But when we moved here, he definitely became very responsive to specific areas of the house. The front door where you walked in, that corner, there he would sit there and growl at the corner. A few times downstairs in the basement where that monkey cage was, ironically, that would always cause some sort of reaction to him. My parents would always chalk it up like, oh, we live in the country, like he's just hearing things and barking. And I'm like, I don't think so, because it's always at the same time of day. It's always at the same corner. It's not, they didn't listen. Every once in a while, I'll get this something ne'er-do-well is in the area. And my mom was like, okay, if you feel this feeling, you have to say, any spirit that does not wish me well has to leave. And she'd say it 3 times and they have to leave. And I'm like, is this some sort of rule that she goes, I'm telling you, Leah, they have to. I'm like, okay. My mom is sort of like an OG Catholic. And, she believes in the saints and all that kind of stuff. And so I think, if she's like, you have to say it 3 times. I'm like, that's some old school Italian shit. So yeah, I believe you. Okay, that's the way we're going to do it. And you know what? It does work. Continuously, as the years went on, I still had that feeling of like something's here. Something creepy is here. Something here is going to cause me to freak out. and then I'll say it 3 times and it'll go away. So there must be some sort of agreement that spirits have that they're like, all right, we're going to peace out. It's like that Beetlejuice, the Beetlejuice vibe, right?
So Leah grew up dealing with her sensitivity in that way, and eventually as a young adult moved abroad for school. Upon her return to her family home, she didn't realize she'd find herself in a very familiar situation, wrestling with those who needed to be known, and stopped at no lengths to get her attention.
I was home from university. I lived in San Francisco, then I would come home every summer. So one summer I was at home in the middle of the night. I was half asleep. I have a habit of sleeping with the light on because I keep seeing stuff when the lights are off. So I sleep with the light on. The one night I sleep with the light off, I was in my room. I was sleeping and something was like, something is watching you. I must have slept on my side. I rolled over and there was this woman. And this woman in white was standing on my bed, laughing maniacally at me. The woman was small. She had on like a white dress and like a cap. Could have been like a really old nurse's uniform or a really old hospital gown that maybe a mental patient would have worn. And she had long hair and her face was like right up in my shit, but I could not see her face. Felt this woman leaning over me and I kicked and started screaming like, what the fuck? Get out, get out, get out. And I turned on all the lights and all I heard was laughing. No one was there. No one was there laughing. All I hear is maniacal, like insane laughing. Yeah, like a cackling in my head. And I thought maybe this is it. Like maybe I've snapped. And I'm cold, sweating. I'm cold. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And I remember the next day I was like, Dad, like, I swear to God this happened. And he was like, okay. There was someone there. There's a woman. I kicked her. And I turned on the light. I heard her laughing. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear her laughing. From then on, I refused to sleep in my room without the light on. But I can hear her voice laughing. Every once in a while, when I remember it, I'm like, I can still hear that bitch's voice. It's so unsettling.
Leah had some light shed on this event from an unlikely source, and apparently this woman in white wasn't unfamiliar.
So around the time this terrifying event occurred, I was seeing a therapist who was very spiritual and very open to different ideas and beliefs. I would go to her twice a week and we would talk about things. And then she would also do body work or Reiki on me. And so when I told her about what had happened, because obviously it didn't just like go away, the feeling was terrifying. And so I went to my therapist like a couple of days after it happened. And I told her, I said, listen, I had the craziest dream. I swear it wasn't a dream. It was real. And she said, yes. I've seen her when we do Reiki together.
What her therapist said next was even more unexpected.
When I do Reiki on you, I know that there are guides that come into the room with us while I'm doing Reiki on you. And one of these guides, one of them happens to be my grandfather. My mother's father, who I've never met, he died way before I was born. He was paranoid schizophrenic. Because of like my grandfather's history and him like abandoning my grandmother and my mom and her sisters, we just like didn't talk about it. It was painful. Mental illness is a thing where like depression is okay, but paranoid schizophrenic isn't. That's like the serious crazy where you just like, we don't talk about it. And my grandmother just like never talked about it. Just don't talk about it. I'm sure that like what happened between them as husband and wife was very traumatic. And she took that to the grave. Like whatever her suffering was with him, that was it. That was the day that she told me that my grandfather's spirit is the one that kind of, he is kind of like this little guardian angel that follows me around and acts as a little bubble wrap barrier for me. She said that this woman was most likely an ancestor that was coming around causing shit in the house. My therapist did say, like, she won't be coming back because your grandfather was like, no, you can't come see her because you don't know how to act, right? I guess they have their own conversations up there. I don't know what they do. But I guess there was a situation where my grandfather was like, no, don't worry about it. My therapist did say, she was like, there's a man that lives in your room and he sits in front of your bookshelf and he's really irritated that you leave the light on all the time. And I was like, I didn't tell you that I leave the light on all the time.
I guess that explains why she felt like she was being watched. Once she was made aware of her grandfather's presence, Leah noticed how he intervened in her life and how he protected her, not only from menacing spirits, but from danger.
I was driving home from work. It was late, and now it's 4 lanes, but it used to be just 1 lane. I was coming up a hill, and a Mack truck came screaming up the hill. And I freaked out, pulled over. It just missed me. Like this Mack truck was passing all these cars into oncoming traffic. And I pulled out of the way, honked my horn, and kept going. Like nothing had happened. A Mack truck is big. You don't just like pull over to avoid it. You pull over and you have to wait for it to pass. And then I pulled back and I continued to drive home. And I got home and I was like, Mom, you would not believe what just happened. And she was like, how could that have happened without you being absolutely destroyed by this truck? There's no way. And when my therapist told me about my grandfather, I thought that must be one of those things where he was like, all right, bubble wrap.
Leah moved on and purchased a loft in the city, but the strange activity followed her.
I moved into my apartment in 2013. It is the candy factory. They used to make rockets there, those candies that we all get at Halloween. I've lived alone for a long time, here and there all over the world, but this was like my first home that I own. Right next door to 999 Queen Street, which if those who listening don't know, it's CAMH, so Center for Addiction and Mental Health. It's inpatient, people can live there. And across the street is my apartment. And my apartment actually looks into the little courtyard. So I moved in there end of 2012 into 2013. My mom's dad lived at CAMH. He was paranoid schizophrenic, so he would receive treatment there, and he was a full-time patient for a while in the 60s. And so it was very strange for my mom to have me living there, because she was like, of all the apartments in the whole entire world, you bought this apartment that faces into the building where my grandfather was treated.
Leah was aware that her grandfather was inpatient at a hospital for mental health, but what she didn't know was that she had purchased a property across from where he had lived. He passed before she was born, and the family barely spoke of him. It blew my mind when she told me that. Because this grandfather is her guardian.
I moved in and we set up, and it was very peaceful. It's very quiet. So the apartment's very open concept. So you can see pretty much every part of it from the kitchen. And I had my living room area into one corner, and then my bedroom was in the other corner, and then the bathroom is in the back. So it's all open concept. From the time I moved in, there was always something kind of odd that would happen. I was sitting in my kitchen doing something, and I hear the TV flickering on and off, on and off, on and off. And I thought, man, is there a short? I checked, I was like, am I sitting on the converter? And then it turned on, and then turned off. And you sort of sit there and you're quiet and you're trying to hear and I thought, oh, my neighbors have the same converter as me and they're turning my TV on. That's where my head went first, where I'm like, that's clearly what it is, right? I'm like, that's even more illogical than thinking there's a ghost. So there was really no rhyme or reason to it to say I had all these electrical things on and then my TV started going on and off. There was a short somewhere. No. It was the TV's off, lights are off. I'm in the other section. I'm focusing on something else. And then all of a sudden it was off, on, off, on, off, on, off. I find I'm always alone. I've never had this experience where somebody's been with me and I'm like, yo, did you just see that? No. I'll just be sitting in my apartment, minding my own business. I went to go see my therapist that day. I'm like, listen, the craziest shit just happened in my apartment. And as I'm talking to her light starts flickering on and off. And she goes, oh, your grandfather's here. She said, he's just trying to tell you that he's here. And he's here with you.
So as time went on, little things continued around the apartment, a gentle reminder of his presence.
I realized all the lamps in my apartment had been unplugged. And it would be like that. I would come home and there would be something unplugged. And I'm thinking, is this a game? Is this a game? It's not funny. And I asked my mom at this point now, because I knew who it was, I was like, let me ask you a question. Was your dad kind of like a jokester? And she goes, oh yeah, he would play pranks all the time. I always felt my apartment was very calm. I never felt scared to be in there. But I always had the feeling of when I open the lock and open the door, I'm like, what am I going to walk into? I'm walking into someone's home that lives there. I'm interrupting someone's space, even though it's my house. I always had this vibe of I'm going to open up the door, I'm going to see something.
Everything remained subtle until one night, Leah did see something.
Wake up and I sit up in bed and there's 3 men in my kitchen standing, but they're from the 70s. So there's a big tall guy smoking a cigarette in bell bottoms, a turtleneck. I can see his outfit. Bell bottoms, turtleneck, and a Vietnam jacket, a combat jacket. A smaller man who had black hair and kind of olive complexion, and a third man who I feel had curly hair and a beard. And they're sitting around talking loudly, smoking cigarettes. And they were old cans, the old cans, not the bubble cans, the 70s style beer cans. They were drinking. And the weird thing too was that I felt the light over my counter was different than what is originally there. Like, I feel like there was, like, I woke up in a different little universe. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And they stop, look at me, and everything goes black. And then I'm all of a sudden waking up again. I re-woke up, and it smells like cigarettes in my apartment. And I don't smoke. And no one who comes to my apartment smokes in my apartment. And no one on my floor smokes. And I have a feeling that, like, the little guy with the dark hair would have been my grandfather, and then his two homies. I'm sitting there like, I can't tell anyone about this because this is next level crazy. Like, this isn't just a lady standing over your bed laughing maniacally. People can be like, yeah, no, I get that one. But like 3 guys just having beers smoking in your apartment, yeah, okay. I did search for pictures after because I thought, okay, I need to identify somebody that I recognize, because why else would there be 3 random people in my apartment? I don't know why I was so like, there can't be 3 random spirits. It has to be one of them, has to be someone I know.
Leah spoke to her mother about what happened.
I described him first, and she goes, oh my God, and showed me the picture. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's him. And she goes, you saw him? And I said, I saw him in my apartment smoking. And so my mom did send me, I think there's one picture she has. And she said, oh, this is your grandfather. And I thought, oh my God, it is him. It's him. It's just like a really good looking, chiseled Italian man with black, shiny hair. That little guy was my grandfather. I don't necessarily think that all spirits are bad and mean. I think some of them are just there to look out for you. You know, again, because I knew it was my grandfather, I didn't feel scared or like something was going to hurt me. If anything, it kind of made me feel a connection to something I don't have a real connection to my mom's side of the family. Like, my grandfather died before I was born. He had left the family years. Like, when my mom was still a kid, he left because he was sick. It was kind of nice to feel like, oh, my grandfather chose me out of anyone. He never met me. I didn't have any connection to this man, and yet he decided to connect with me. And I remember telling my grandmother, it was kind of hard. She's an Italian immigrant, but she's pretty smart. And I said, you know, Grandma, what if I told you, like, oh, your husband kind of looks out for me? And she was sort of quiet. And she was like, you know, that wouldn't surprise me. She goes, I feel like you would have gotten along really, really well with him. Because she was really the only one who knew him before he became really ill. I mean, it's possible that I just was open enough, like my consciousness was open enough to accept the idea that this would be somebody, or that I could see it, and maybe he loved that I would be able to see it. After I found this out, I did ask my mom, like, what can you tell me? And she's like, I really don't remember. I mean, he left when she was 6. But she's like, I do remember him being okay sometimes, that he could actually be a dad, and he was really quite lovely. And so I'm at this point where I don't really know who he is as a man, but I get to know him as this little thing. I think it helps me make peace with what my family history is. You know, like, everyone has their family history, right? For me, helps me have a connection to something that had maybe a really negative aspect to it, and I can sort of heal that with this connection I have with this man.
Something became complex when I edited this episode. I changed parts 100 times. I was so driven to tell this story correctly. and I really hope he's happy with it. Special thanks to Leah for sharing her story. If you have a sec, please subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. It would mean a lot to us. Story submissions can be sent to hello.geist.podcast@gmail.com. Geist is written and directed by Danielle Matar. Original score and sounds by Beau Jensen. Episode mixed and mastered by Esker. Geist logo is by Jake Carruthers. Follow us on all social media platforms at Geist_podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, sleep tight.
Now receiving frequency transmission.
One of the most interesting ideas about ghosts was proposed by Andrew Lang, who was a fascinating polymath and author. He was one of the co-founders of the Society for Psychical Research, who took one of the first sort of forensic and scientific approaches to gathering and cataloging accounts of ghosts. And in 1897, he collected them in an amazing volume called The Book of Dreams and Ghosts. And in the Book of Dreams and Ghosts, Lang proposed the unique idea that ghosts may be the effect or the emanation caused by a dead person dreaming, and in effect projecting into the mind of those living. And that's a fascinating concept, that when you encounter what seems to be a ghost, you may actually be making contact with a dead person dreaming.
Transmission complete. Stay tuned to Spectrovision Radio. Stay.